All right, so picking up where we left off, we're right up here. So he in good time must his lieutenant be. Cassio is now Othello's kind of higher up, his right-hand man, and I, his moreship's ancient. I look to my notes and I find out that an ancient is a low-ranking official or officer. So pretty much what's happened here is Cassio has gotten a promotion that Iago feels he should have gotten. So he's angry, as you would be. Rodrigo says, by heaven, I rather would have been his hangman. So rather than be a low-ranking officer, Rodrigo says, I would have rather have been an executioner. I would have rather been the person to send people to their death than to be this guy's lackey. And, of course, there were some ties religiously to being an executioner and being a person who would actually execute people. You didn't really want to be an executioner either. But he's saying, I would rather have done that, certainly, than be kind of a lower-class officer to Cassio. Iago comes back. Why, there's no remedy. There's nothing that I can do. 'Tis the curse of service. So, 'tis the curse of service. This is the way things go in the military. This is how it is. Preferment, preference, goes by letter and affection. Letter and personal favors. Letters of recommendation, personal favors, and not by old gradation, where each second stood heir to the first. So the advancement in their particular situation doesn't work by who's put in their time and more of a seniority thing where you escalate and continue to move up. It's more based on favoritism, who likes who's done favors, and things like that. Now, sir, talking to Rodrigo, be judge yourself whether I in any just term am a fiend to love the more. Okay, so give me any reason, he's saying to Iago, or saying to Rodrigo rather, give me any reason why I'm obligated to have any sort of compassionate feeling, any sort of friendliness to the Moor who is Othello. Rodrigo, I would not follow him then. I wouldn't acknowledge him. I would rather quit than follow him. I wouldn't do it. And Iago says, yeah, just relax a little bit, be content, because Iago's not concerned. Iago, remember, is our villain, so he's not exactly like a weak victim here. I follow him to serve my turn upon him. I will do what I'm told to do because that's what I was told to do. We cannot all be masters, so we can't all be the boss. Not all, or nor all masters cannot be truly followed. So let's look at that a little bit, because there's a little bit of wordplay there. The nor makes both of those statements true. So we can't all be masters. And I'm going to read that as all masters cannot be truly followed. So there are some masters out there that people might not be true to. They might not follow them as closely as they should. So just because you're a master doesn't mean that you're going to get following from all of the people that you're in charge of. You shall mark many a duteous and knee-crooking knave. Mark means to notice or pay attention. Many a duteous, someone who follows duty, and knee-crooking, and go to my side notes, kneeling, knave. I'm going to look up what knave means, and I'm going to find that it's kind of like an underling, or like a servant, someone who doesn't really have any power, any control. The doting on his own obsequious bondage wears out his time. So doting on, loving on his own obsequious bondage. So his own duty, job, wears out his time, much like his master's ass. Not ass like hindquarters, ass like donkey. So he's seen many a knave who wears out his time just kind of giving it for the man, right? Not really asking questions, just sitting down, doing their job, putting their time in, and then going home at the end of the day. No fuss, no muss. For naught but provender, so for nothing more than feed. I'm referring again to the donkey reference here. And when he's old, cashiered. So he's talking about these people who they're weak, they are workhorses, they're donkeys, they work as hard as they can, they work like pack mules. All they work for is food, and when they get too old and when they can't perform their duties anymore, they're cashed in, they're killed, they're fired, they're dismissed, they're whatever. Iago says, whip me, such honest knaves. These people should be punished. That's not the way to live. Others there are, so this is a contrast, who, trimmed in forms and visages of duty, I got to look up what visages is, appearances, keep yet their hearts attending on themselves, and throwing but shows of service on their lords, do well thrive by them. We'll pause there because that's an end of a thought. So he's saying on one hand you've got the yes men. On the other, there are people who, even though they're trimmed in forms and appearances of duty, they look like they're doing their job 100%. They're doing everything right. But they keep their hearts attending on themselves. They have some other motive. They have some other goal in plan. Throwing but shows of service on their lords. They don't go against their boss. They do everything right. They perform very admirably. Do well thrive by them. The bosses love them, maybe give them raises, maybe give them promotions. And when they have lined their coats, do themselves homage. So when the person in the lesser position has angled themselves to line their coats, to have a lot of benefit, a lot of extras, then they turn to themselves. And then they say, okay, now it's time to do my stuff. These fellows have some soul, and such a one do I profess myself. I'm one of those people who I may do a really, really good job for Othello, for Cassio. I'm going to look like I am just in love with my job, but I am keeping my heart attending on myself. I've got a different goal, and I'm not going to lose sight of it. For sir, talking to Rodrigo, it is as sure as you are Rodrigo, were I the Moor, I would not be Iago. So if he was to be the Moor be Othello, right? If I were to be Othello, I would not be Iago. I wouldn't be myself if I had to be someone else. That's another place that SparkNotes has kind of an inaccurate translation, just as a small point of information. In following him, I follow but myself. So he's going to look like he's following everything that Othello says, but by doing this, he's still maintaining, he's only going to do his work for his own objectives. But he's going to make it look like he's doing everything exactly by the book for Othello. Heaven is my judge, no one else. Not I for love or duty, but seeming so for my peculiar end. Peculiar in this case means personal. So he's not going to be doing anything for love, for duty, even though he's going to make it appear so. He's actually working for his own personal means. For when my outward actions, when the things that he's saying and doing outwardly, doth demonstrate the native act and figure of my heart in compliment extern, 'tis not long after, but I will wear my heart upon my sleeve. And this carries on to the next line, but basically he's saying that when he gets to where his actions and his true heart start to match up, then he's going to start to open up and show his real personality that he's going to keep hidden for the time being. So the scene that you have starting here is Iago and Rodrigo, and you learn quite a bit about both characters. You also learn quite a bit about Othello, and they are three of your main players. You learn that Othello is a higher up. You learn that he has offended Iago, and you also learn that the person who he promoted, Cassio, is also not on Iago's best friend list. He thinks that Cassio is a fake. He thinks that he's a book-learned fighter and a book-learned lieutenant, but he doesn't have any experience with battle. Rodrigo, you learn, does a lot of listening to Iago. He doesn't interrupt a lot. He doesn't challenge him. He kind of says, well, I agree with you. No, I wouldn't do that either. It's unbelievable. So he's kind of a yes man to Iago. That should hopefully help give you a little bit of setup for reading the rest of that scene and then introducing some of the other characters.